Lesson 20, you learned all about graphing on a coordinate plane. We're going to jump into our practice problems and review what we've learned so far by watching previous video. Here we have a coordinate plane that has our x-axis as our horizontal line as 0 and our y-axis as our vertical line. This point here is called our origin. This is 0, 0 on that coordinate. If I would draw in where those lines are, this is what gives that numeric value of x being positive or x being negative. So to the right is going to be positive for x, to the left is going to be negative. In the vertical axis for y, y is positive if you're going up, y is negative if you're going down, and you've got your coordinates or your marks to show where those values are, both positive and negative. Now you put both of those things together, x and y, and it's called an ordered pair. That ordered pair shows up like this, which you have an x value written in that first space and a y value written in that second space. And when you're graphing these points, you start at this 0 point, 0, 0, and the x value tells you to go if it's positive to the right, if it's negative to the left. And the y value tells you if it's positive to go up, and if it's negative to go down, to plot a specific point on this entire graph. Now they're going to fall into, wherever they're graphed, a specific quadrant. This is the first quadrant. You're going to have both your x and y values be positive values, so x is positive, y is positive. This is the second quadrant, which is x is negative and y is a positive value. Here's the third quadrant, where you have x being a negative value and y being a negative value. And here's the fourth quadrant, where x is positive and y is a negative value. That kind of shows where those items are going to be. In your practice problems, it asks you to graph those points. Let's do that together. The first one, A, is 0, 5. I would start here at 0. I'm not going anywhere because it says 0. And then the 5 value is my y value, goes up 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's where I would have point A. I'm just going to label it with the letter so you can see where those would show up. In letter B, it says -1, -6. So I start here at 0, 0. I go over 1 because x is -1, and then I go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right here I would have B. Letter C says -2, 0. And -2, 0 means I'm going over 2 with my x value. 0 means I'm not going anywhere y value for my vertical up or down. So that C value falls right here on the actual original x-axis. That's going to be where C is graphed. D, -3, -4. Start at 0 again, 1, 2, 3, because x is -3. And this says +4, so I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be my value for letter D. Next I have letter E, 5, -1. You probably get the hang of this now. Start here. Your x value tells you that it's positive, going to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your y value is -1, so you're going down. This is going to be point E. Lastly, letter F, D, 2, and -4. Start at 0. +2 means 2 to the right. -4 means down. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is letter F. So here's where you would have those points plotted on your coordinate graph or coordinate plane. Again, our ordered pair has the x value, then the y value. You're graphing positive x values, negative x values, positive y values, negative y values. Put those two things together, it gives it our ordered pair, and gives it the coordinates for where those show up on our graph. The next portion of our lesson practice problems ask us to complete this table. It says for each pair of variables, identify the independent variable and the dependent variable. Let's go up and let's quickly review what that actually looks like in terms of what a dependent variable and an independent variable are. If you're back up here in example, right before example 2, it gives the definitions. It says an independent variable is the variable whose value can be chosen, also called the input variable. So it's the variable that is first put into an equation. The dependent variable is the variable whose value is determined by the input value of another variable, also called the output variable. So going back to our example problems, here in the first one, it says for each pair of variables, identify the independent and dependent variable. Letter A, number of traffic violations versus the cost of auto insurance. Basically, we're asking which one comes first, and then which one then is the outcome afterwards. Here in our solution, it says the independent variable is the number of traffic violations. The dependent variable is the cost of auto insurance. If you have more traffic violations, guess what? Your auto insurance goes up because you're a higher liability to the insurance company. They're going to have to probably pay for an accident you get in because you have bad traffic violations or bad driving habits that show up in those violations. Next, letter B says the electric bill total or kilowatts of electricity used. Well, what comes first? You using the electricity or the bill? The independent variable is the kilowatts of electricity used. You use the electricity first, then the electric company sends you a bill every month based on how much you use. If you use more electricity, your bill is higher. If you use less electricity, your bill is lower. Okay? So independent is what comes first, that's the input. Dependent is what is the result, or what comes next. Let's go look back at our example problems for lesson practice. It says, for each pair of variables, identify the independent and dependent variable. G, the amount paid versus the number of toys purchased. Well, you pay based on how many toys you're purchasing. So you have to bring those toys to the register, they scan them, then you pay for that amount. So the amount paid is dependent, the number of toys is independent. They'll scan the number of toys, then how much you're paying comes afterwards. Letter H, the number of hours worked and the number of yards mowed. Well, which one comes first? The number of hours worked is dependent and the number of yards mowed is independent. Depending on how many yards you mow will determine how many hours you work. So if I'm mowing 1 yard, it's probably only going to take me an hour, maybe even less to get it done. But if I'm mowing 10 yards, then it obviously takes more hours to get that amount done. Okay, see the relationship there. In letter I, it brings us back to example 3, in which you're using this same idea of independent and dependent variables to actually solve mathematical equations. The x value in this case is our independent variable, in which you plug in this value right here in the equation and then solve. The dependent variable then would be y is the result. So if I take negative 3 and I plug it in here, negative 3 times 2 would be negative 6 minus 1. Y would then be negative 7. Now I take the next value, negative 2, plug this in, I kind of restart with the same equation. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, minus 1, negative 5. Go again, negative 1 plugged in here for x, so I'd have 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, minus 1 is negative 3, and I should be able to see a pattern that starts to arise in terms of when I change one of these variables, these numbers are changing by a similar amount or the same difference each time. So here's how you show that independent and dependent variable understanding in a algebraic expression. Take that value, plug it in, and then solve for what would be the dependent variable in that case. God's blessings on your homework.